stations in an Ethiopian form and manner. So with these quick short updates, I will open it up to any questions that you may have. We'll start on this side with Iskandar, and I'll come to you, Fasika.
Thank you very much, Bilani. You talked about battles fought to defeat and repel TPLF forces from Afar and Amhara regions. But in recent statements, TPLF leaders insisted their forces remained undefeated and just withdrew from Amhara and Afar regions. I was wondering if you could comment on this and also on the take of the international community on this TPLF arguments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Iskandar. On the TPLF retreat, I guess those in the international community and media who choose to amplify TPLF's narrative have got their own agenda for doing so. Nevertheless, I think there is an open invitation for those that want to go and document, particularly from the international media, as has been facilitated in many parts of liberated areas, to go document and discuss with those that have witnessed the intense battles, what had transpired as well. So I wouldn't just leave it to a statement that has been issued by an organization deemed a terrorist organization. I think Ethiopia and its heroic forces do not need external validation, as Ethiopians know the sacrifices that have been paid and the challenges that had been countered in order to gain the current status quo, as well as the setbacks that TPLF has encountered. But more importantly, I think in that argument, the TPLF will have to face and respond to mothers within the Tigray region who have sent off their sons and daughters thinking that they would come back. How will they respond, when they have sent them in droves for a senseless conflict that they have engaged in? So these are questions that they will have to account to, and the current, noise with regards to whether it's a strategic retreat or not will inevitably reveal itself. But again, I want to draw your attention to just something that had transpired within the recent past, which is number one. The claims that they had also seized Gashana again. So if this was a force that was strategically retreating, there was a lot of noise coming out from their end and rhetoric coming out from their end that they had recently seized Gashana. The other one is evidence that you have also seen of heavy infrastructure damages and a lot of other battles that they have engaged in over the past few days as well. And then again, the rhetoric of, we're about to take Addis, we're almost reaching there, is something that just recently transpired. So again, within that context, this strategic retreat narrative is open for other people who are more inquisitive and want to get to the bottom of it. Fasika?
Thank you, Bilani, for the briefing and the opportunity as well. My first question is, after retaking all the areas in Afar and Amhara region, what's the next strategic military goal of the latest operation led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed? The second one is regarding the latest initiative by the government, informing the National Dialogue Commission. And one of the aim of this commission, according to the draft proclamation, says that laying out a foundation for national consensus and building a state with strong legitimacy. So in order to achieve this goal, does this process include amending the constitution or the current constitution? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fasika. On your first question of where to hereforth, we're still in the final stages of this latest operation. If you recall, the Operation for National Unity and Diversity, the aim was to ensure that TPLF forces were cleared out of the Amhara and Afar regions. This is something that is still being undertaken because there's still some elements within certain pockets that need to be fully cleared out. So what next after this is, first we need to conclusively finalize this phase of it, and then those that need to share what transpires next will do so. On the national dialogue, it's too early for me to say that because number one, as I was mentioning to you earlier, this is an independent body that is being set up. The independent body, based on various stakeholder inputs, based on its, on processes of assessment that it's going to be taking, will identify these agenda items. So as you had said, if this is an agenda item that is important or that has been a key area of contestation, then I do imagine as a democratic and independent body that they would bring it up. But again, this is not something that is being driven by the executive body. This is an independent process, and I think we would need to allow the process to materialize in its own time period. I'll take one question here and I'll come there.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mulata from Align. My question is out of the northern part of the country. It's about some eastern and southern parts that drought affected areas. That the Somali regional government said that about 3.4 million people are in need of help. So there is also the same problem in the Borana zone also. What the government of Ethiopia doing to address those people are in need? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have the data, unfortunately, but this is something that has been covered by the National Disaster Risk Management Commission. I don't have specific figures for you, but you could inquire with them. There has been assistance that has been delivered to these drought-affected areas, and this is something that is going to be continuing with partners as well. Guru?
Thank you very much, Bileni. First question on the humanitarian situation in the north. Now that war is subsiding, I understand that the government is trying to expedite the process of food delivery to those in need. How is the collaboration work being done now that things are working well with the United Nations? Because the UN is saying the same thing, that food should be delivered as soon as possible to avoid any catastrophe. To post-conflict reconstruction. What is the plan now? Because the war-torn areas in Afar, Amhara, even in the northern Tigray regional state, as this is part of the country, need to be addressed. Is there any plan on the paper? Maybe final question, can you update us on your call, the government's call of the diaspora to return home for the holiday of 1 million diaspora? Is there any progress so far? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grum. On your first question, I mean, nothing really changes from the Ethiopian side. The commitment for humanitarian assistance to its people in the northern part of the country is still strong, has always been strong. The commitment has always been there. The humanitarian assistance needs have obviously expanded due to TPLF's incursions and belligerence in the other parts of the region, as I had mentioned. So again, equal attention needs to be paid to people who have lost their livelihoods as well in these regions. Again, there are certain calls by certain bodies only focused on the Tigray region, but it's important because the Ethiopian government is responsible for people throughout the country and all regions as well. So the government remains committed to ensuring that assistance is reaching those beneficiaries. Again, I want to reiterate and highlight here, because this is a contested issue, that humanitarian assistance interruptions has never been what the government has wanted to do, but obviously because of TPLF's own politicization of these kind of issues, people who actually need dire humanitarian assistance have been cordoned off by their own, say, guardians, as they call themselves, from assistance reaching them. On your second question of post-conflict reconstruction, indeed, this is, we've witnessed huge infrastructure damages that not only, the bricks and mortars aspect of it, but what it means in terms of decimating institutions, this frivolous undertaking that the TPLF have been going through in all of the areas that they've occupied has seen a devastation of a lot of people's livelihoods as a result of that. So post-conflict reconstruction is key. There are some areas already in which initial infrastructure works are being undertaken, like restoring electric lines and phone lines that have been purposely, decimated. But over the next, there is a committee that has been set up under the purview of the Deputy Prime Minister, and over the next weeks, it will become more evident what the entire package for reconstruction of, conflict-affected communities would look like. So I'll defer to the stakeholders who'd come to that. On your final question with reference to the Grand Ethiopian Homecoming, it has been a very positive uptake by Ethiopians within the diaspora. And again, we reiterate the gratitude to Ethiopians throughout the world who have not only shown their solidarity with Ethiopians and with the Ethiopian government and Ethiopians that are affected in this current phase, but also the initiatives that they have been undertaking in mobilizing fundraising support from where they are. So there are those that have chosen to stay there and mobilize fundraising support and are really doing great work in terms of that. There are those that are also mobilizing resources, and there are those that have chosen to actually come here and support, on the ground as well. So you can see that, I'm sure you'll get more details, but there has been a surge in Ethiopian Airlines bookings, which indicates a positive uptake. Also, the government has established a national committee composed of various government entities that is being coordinated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well. So you will see that the Ministry of Health has also indicated that there's drop-off points that have been set up at Bole International Airport for those that want to come with pre-approved medical items and supplies. So there is this whole mobilization that the Ethiopian diaspora communities are engaged in, and this is something that we will see continuing as well. Thank you. Brooke.
Thank you very much. Recently, the TPLF, in a letter for the UN Secretary General, requested for peaceful resolution of the conflict in the northern part of Ethiopia. What's the government's position on this? And if you could put it in a yes or no reply, is the government willing to sit for negotiations with the TPLF? And my second question is, there are talks of new advances around Alamata, and also there are claims of government's airstrikes around Alamata and in the vicinities. So, and these airstrikes are said to be targeted on civilians. And what are the targets of these airstrikes if they are happening? And are there any new advances that you could tell us around Alamata and in the vicinities? And finally, you've told us about the new proclamation that's going to establish a national dialogue commission, and there were efforts by different stakeholders to facilitate national dialogue in the country, including the MIND initiative, which the Minister of Peace was part of. So what is the need to establish a new institution whose appointees are chosen by the Prime Minister, while there were similar efforts that going on in the country for a year and 3 months, I think. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Brooke. On your first question, I mean, it's not a simple question to answer yes or no. I cannot give you a yes or no answer. I have to reiterate again the position of the government, which has been stated over the past year, that a peaceful resolution before the conflict began is a path that the government had always chosen and emphasized. Once the conflict had started, there has been so many olive branches that have been extended, and you have seen so many of them being rejected. So with reference to the call that you said, or the letter that has been issued, and I don't even know if such a illegitimate entity can send such a letter to United Nations body. Nevertheless, the call that you made for peace is something that the Ethiopian government still wants. The resolution of this phase is something that we're committed to in terms of ensuring that it's done in a peaceful way and through a political means. Nevertheless, any political solution will always be centered on justice, will be centered on accountability, and also in dialogue. When I refer to you in terms of dialogue, the question of who and with whom this would be done with and what are the prerequisites are details that will be unveiled in due time. So I'll leave it as that for the first one. I don't have any information of any advancements that you have shared, but I think the Ethiopian government has been very transparent when airstrikes have been undertaken to neutralize identified terrorist cells and terrorist hideouts. So this is within the constitutional framework that these strikes would be undertaken. Attacking civilians has never been the mandate or the modus operandi of the federal government, although you would hear it from the other end. On the national dialogue, again, I'm not quite certain what you're referring to in the previous one. There are efforts by various actors as well, but this is a commission that's going to be set up reporting to the House of People's Representatives. So like I said to you, this is not something that there will be direct executive oversight, but this is a representation of the people's needs and requirements for various contestations that have risen over the past 3 years and before that as well. I'll take one more question, Noe, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you for the briefing. Can we have a bit more details on the phone call that the Prime Minister had with President of Senegal, South Africa, and the DRC? Can we expect some more diplomatic activity from the African Union? And can we expect a ceasefire in Ethiopia?
Thank you, Noe. I don't have any details with regards to the phone calls, but these kind of conversations will continue because this is a normal part of an exercise of what the Prime Minister has been doing in engaging African counterparts on common issues of concern at the national level, regionally, and continentally as well. So I would imagine that they would continue. I think, what's the last question that you had asked? Second part, sorry. Ceasefire from who? Is the question. The government has already been engaged in a ceasefire before, which has been evidently, referred to as a sick joke. So the federal government has got an obligation to maintain peace, to ensure territorial integrity, and the operations by the federal defense forces will ensure that territorial integrity will be maintained, and that TPLF is no more a threat to the peace and stability of Ethiopia. So I think with these last responses, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you.